Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sanjoy Roy. I'm a dance writer for The Guardian, and I am joining Shobana Jayasinghe here today on the stairs, where we are going to talk about Strange Blooms, which is a piece that Shobana made in 2013. Shobana, I remember seeing that piece and being quite thrilled that all of my expectations were overturned because it was a piece about plants and flowers. So I was expecting something floral and lovely and perfumed. And what I got was rather high impact and jolting. How did you end up with that kind of effect?
Well, the sort of inspiration for Strange Bloom came from lots of different sources. I suppose the main thing was that just before I made it, I found myself working with two scientists, one who was a geneticist and one who was a neurobiologist. And I was just amazed at what I found out about cells and how they behave. So, having done biology at school, a cell to me was a circle with a dot in the middle, which wasn't particularly dynamic. But I realized that, in fact, cells were incredibly busy and very dramatic spaces. So even though with these two scientists, I was kind of looking at animal and human cells, I began to wonder what plant cells were like, how they would behave. And it kind of coincided with me reading a book by Ramesh Gunasekara called Prisoner in Paradise. And that was about a young English woman going to Mauritius in the 19th century. And a lot of her cultural shock really came through the plants that she encountered. So, I mean, I kind of had, I was just beginning to be really sort of interested in plants from those two different points of view. And then at that particular time in London, there was an exhibition of a 20th century photographer, Carl Bloesfeld. And again, his photographs of plants, I just found amazing. They were really kind of, he treated plants and flowers almost in an architectural way. So they kind of looked, I mean, there were photographs, there weren't impressionistic drawings, but he obviously saw them as strong, almost brutal concepts and constructs rather than delicate romantic things. So I think from the very beginning, I just knew that my portrayal of plants, wouldn't be like Valentine's Day.
Okay, thanks, Shobana. We are going to show some scenes from Strange Blooms now, and then let's have a talk about it a bit more afterwards.
Yes.
Okay, well, that was quite a high impact piece of work once again. Uh, that opening quote from Darwin about plant movement struck me as really one of the keys to the piece. It struck me that you are taking the timescale of plants and transposing it to a human timescale so that we can see what movement might be for plants. Is that how you were thinking in creating this piece?
Yeah, I think translating time was key, really, because in some ways, if you looked at a plant or a flower, you don't see much movement unless there's wind blowing, but it's not a movement that the plant makes. And one of the earliest videos that I found online was a time-lapse video created of sunflower saplings growing. And what struck me is just the kind of sheer power and tenacity of these little saplings. And literally they were moving round and round looking for sunlight. And I guess, the ones who found it will live and the others wouldn't. So it's just their movement, this kind of circularity of their movement and the power of their movement when translated into our time was what struck me. And that was the inspiration of the opening image of Strange Blooms, which I call sunflower saplings.
Yes, and there and elsewhere, I get the strong feeling that you're really not interested in portraying or representing plants, but you're looking at the systems and structures that inform them. How would you say that the botanical processes were mapped onto your choreographic processes?
Well, I discovered that there was a theoretical botanist called Astrid Lindenmayer who tried to express the process of branching as an algorithm. And that was, for a choreographer, that was just incredibly fascinating because, we're always trying to find a logic to create movement. Or we're trying to find the logic in movements that we create, so they're just not incoherent. So it was brilliant to find a formula whereby it was kind of like a grammar of repetition. Because if you look at a twig that's attached to a little branch that looks a little bit like a tree, and that little branch is attached to a slightly bigger branch, which is then probably attached to something that's even bigger than itself. So it's a kind of an endless and exponential repetition growth that is there when you see branches. So in the section called branching, it's those L systems, the Lindenmayer systems, that's really kind of where they started off the kind of movement generation. And so you're right. I mean, I wasn't trying to portray the quality of a branch through movement. I don't think that's fully interesting or even possible. So it was really holding hands with the grammar of branching rather than the branch itself, the visual quality of the branch.
Yeah, there's also a whole quality of not just a branching, but the movement quite often, especially towards the end, was very splintering, fractious, and the energies seem to be very cutting against each other. Could you tell us a bit more about the dynamic quality that you were aiming for here?
One of the images that I, kept looking back at was this photograph of a little tree which had managed to actually grow within a concrete wall. I think it was somewhere in Hong Kong. And I was just struck by the tenacity of this little bush, which wasn't planted on the ground, but it managed to make, a solid trunk and put out leaves and still kind of clinging onto this bit of concrete. So it's the sheer willpower of plants. I mean, they don't have, unlike mammals, whether the animal or human, they don't do sort of extraneous movements, I mean, unlike a dog, they don't scratch their ears or they don't wag their tails because they've seen you, or play. But when they move, as Charles Darwin rightly points out, they move with incredible focus and economy. So it's a very it's a very particular quality of movement. And again, as a choreographer, I just found that kind of movement interesting. I mean, I remember reading a poem by Ted Hughes, which was about a snowdrop. And usually, you'd look at a snowdrop and think that's rather a sweet little thing that's and quite delicate. But actually, Ted Hughes saw in it, again, this stubbornness, and he kind of, I think he describes the snowdrop as having a heavy metallic head, which pursues its ends as brutal as the stars. So there is that quality to plants, and that's really what inspired me. It's their kind of ability to move with a great focus and splinter. Well, we've all seen how plant roots can actually literally splinter concrete. So despite their frail appearance, they're incredibly strong and assertive entities.
Okay. Well, thanks. I will certainly never look at a flower in a rosy, romantic way ever again. So, Shobana, when will we be meeting again?
Well, we'll meet again on the 22nd of June, which is a Monday at 7 p.m. for a very special screening of Two Mortal.
Great, I look forward to that. And in the meantime, thanks to all our audience for joining us on the stairs today. We're going to leave you with a short film called Mulberry Blooms, which is what happens when the Strange Blooms project was transplanted to a school in East London. So keep on watching for that. Thanks for joining us today, and see you soon.
Thank you for watching.
I'm excited, but I'm nervous. Emphasis on nervous because I'm not good at freestyling or coming up with ideas and stuff.
I'm really excited because I think it's my time to express myself.
I'm very good with someone teaching me and me repeating the movements and stuff like that, but I can't make it up by myself.
This project gives 4 students the opportunity to have their own journey as researchers, which is actually what happens within the studio.
Because we knew what the theme was, which was plants, with the movement and with the legs and such things. I was like, oh, that might be the roots because she's running away and trying to take up all the space, but the guy's grabbing her back.
I thought choreographers were yes, okay, I've got an idea, I'm going to dance, I'm going to teach them, and they're going to do it. But it's completely different, it's nothing like that.
And when we spoke to her, she gave us lots of information about how she researched into it, how she was so interested in it, and yeah, it kind of helped.
We done a little research on them, so we had a gardener, the head gardener from South Bank Garden, and he talked us through different plants and what they do.
I was mainly focused on asking him about roots because that's what I'm more interested about.
It's a real bully with its roots. It grows by sending out runners.
So we were touching, feeling, smelling plants.
I was really inspired by how the plants, they were going around fences to grab more sunlight as they were in the shade and stuff, so I'm going to use that.
And that they attack other plants.
Yeah, there's a battle between one plant and another.
Yeah.
They're vicious.
Yeah, especially because we used to think, when we used to look at plants, we just thought it was really pretty and green, but now when we look at it, we think, oh my god, this one's trying to kill that one's trying to get in there.
Really strong. And step, grow, arm, head, break, lift the hip, and change. Step, kick, step, unfurl, drag, and turn. Give your little partner your weight in this.
I'm quite nervous because it's just the starting point, so we're just getting all these ideas and sort of things.
At first, I was kind of confused with my ideas and stuff, but once I went to Maxine and talked to her, she helped me choose my main ideas that I'm going to be focusing on.
It keeps changing,
Yeah,
because we
yeah.
learn new things every day, so then it keeps changing and we want to add this, add that.
Yeah, so our
Take away
interest
that.
is changing as well, so yeah.
We're going to take a group of dancers, however many we want, and we're going to give them tasks or create dance movements with them. And the point for this is so that we take on the role of a choreographer.
I'm going to tell my 4 dancers to think of a plant in a positive way, to come up with 2 words each and come up with moves for it. Then I'm going to get them to show each other their moves, then teach each other the moves and make a phrase.
I take that in and I may use some of those in my duets or my solo piece and be inspired from that, and we're going to all talk about how it makes the audience, also how it makes us feel when we're watching it.
Decide on different dynamics, how I want them fast, slow, high or low, and then I'll just play around with them, how they respond to what I say. It was so hard.
Yeah.
Why? I made this like perfect plan of how I wanted everything to go.
They couldn't think of anything until I brought that picture. Yeah, that's when all the words just came right out their mouth, like spiky, sharp.
My second solo came from a Japanese plant, which was more lethal or more deadly. And I used a red bank for my deadly plant to also bring in more life to my phrase.
I just really like the idea of roots and thinking about them as like a sly and sneaky, like trying to take up all the space. I created a dance piece which was a lot of travelling, a lot of hand gestures of letting things go.
I wanted my project to be about a plant honeysuckle because I liked how it was growing and how it was always rotating and finding something to grab onto and rotate around. And I used that in my dance piece by always rotating and having this kind of circular motion.
Because I saw plants that they look nice, but then they had like these thorns and sharp things at the end of them, and I used moves I created moves to match them words and put it into a phrase.
The fact that I got to learn different techniques of how a choreographer would construct a dance, it was nice for me to learn that and to use it, because now I've got a different side of me that I can now use, like all the skills I can use as well.
We aim to give the students an insight into what a professional artist does. We also aim to give them the tools and the opportunity to create their own projects and to make creative decisions. And I think any kind of exercise that helps people make creative decisions and be valued in doing that is an incredibly empowering activity.
I think I've come a long way from the beginning, and I think throughout my dance GCSE I could implement that. Maxine would always come over and she'd be like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'd be like, "Because it looks good." But then I realised it's not about looking good, it's not about being in my comfort zone. I have to get out of that and just look at the theme and try and work through that.
I just can't stop moving it. Like when I'm not in the dance studio and sometimes at home or if I'm in the classroom, you just find me just like moving my legs and my arms and stuff, and it's like if I don't stop moving it, if I stop moving, I feel like I'm gonna go stiff or I just lose the ideas from my head.
I've gained a lot because I've gained different techniques to develop my dance pieces, like dynamics and speed and other things like levels and stuff. So I think that really helped me because now I know that I can never be finished with my project. I could have lots of different stuff to still go on and make it better and better.
I think from what we've done, I think I am a creative person because although at first I struggled and with the whole making up moves, but actually thinking about it, you have to experiment with your own body to know, what to do and how to come up with the moves.
Coming up with something just fresh out of my mind and is brand new, and I'm teaching it and I'm making it up, then I always thought that I can never do that.